Good morning, everyone. And I'm red because I just got out of a morning massage, last massage, right before I fly out today to go to Seattle to do my SFG level 2, which is Strong First certification, which is like the most prestigious kettlebell group out there as far as teaching this based on the strict Russian standards, which reinforce good, healthy movement patterns. So I wanted to share this a little bit because it's timely, because it's on my mind, because I'm pretty inspired by kettlebell work, and everything we put together in our clinic really gets patients motivated to learn kettlebell work. And anyway, I know that a lot of chiropractors out there don't really know a whole lot about kettlebells, and maybe they want to know more, or they don't understand how that would fit into patient care. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I want to talk about some of the exercises that we take our patients through. Before I get started, I put a link in here, demo.movenowyou.com. If you go to the demo, I cover how the program works and how we set up all the systems in someone's practice, but how the kettlebell thing fits into it. It's organized in how we progress our patients through exercises in something called the belt system of functional movement. So, what does that mean? I'll explain that real quick and then I'll get back to the kettlebell thing. What it means is we take our patients through a movement assessment in office. We figure out which of the 8 dysfunctional patterns, so D1 to D8, which it goes, I'm going to quiz myself right now. So, cervical, thoracic, shoulder, scapular, core, posterior chain, hip, squat. Okay? So those are the 8 different patterns. We take them through a movement assessment. There's a couple different levels of the movement assessment. We flag what things are most dysfunctional in what prioritization. Someone could be super dysfunctional and have all 8, but we try to steer clear of doing that because that person's going to be there forever doing really basic exercises. So oftentimes what I like to do is flag maybe 4 or 5 dysfunctions, retest them in about 4 weeks, and then see which ones to prioritize at that point moving forward. And what we do inside of this belt system of functional movement, we organize a process of getting people mobile in their tissues and their joints alongside with what we're doing with chiropractic and postural corrective care in office. So we go through getting them more mobile, and then we create some tissue extensibility. Excuse me, like getting them to have better, not flexibility, but mobility. And then we pattern those movements, so we address a motor control component. And then the key, this is where the kettlebell stuff comes in place, you reinforce those patterns with a strength exercise. We use kettlebells because kettlebells are a very low-tech piece of equipment. It's very easy to have these in your office, very easy for a patient to get a kettlebell to use at home once they're taught how to go through these basic movements safely. And a kettlebell reinforces these patterns with a load because it's a weight. So there's a couple different weights that we recommend a patient get. We start them off at a fairly light weight. Certain movements you need a heavier weight to give the feedback to the patient so they can actually get the most out of the exercise. And then we start patients off by teaching them breathing, hip hinge, and core. Those are the 3 movement patterns. Breathing is a movement pattern. Breathing, hip hinge, and core. And then we load the hip hinge with a deadlift. We do a kettlebell deadlift. We have 10-year-old patients doing kettlebell deadlifts. We have 85-year-old patients doing kettlebell deadlifts. Maybe an 85-year-old is going to be doing that deadlift off of a platform, off of like a box, and making sure that they can safely get into a hip hinge and they can hold a good neutral spine and they can shift the pelvis backwards, move through the hips, and do that with a controlled force, a controlled load. That's one of the most helpful exercises you could ever teach a patient. And I think back to my first 7-8 years in practice, well, actually more than that, as far as what, before teaching any sort of movement. I mean, it's really my first, I'd say probably about 10 years in practice. I've been practicing 17, I'll go on 17 years now. So my first 10 years in practice, never teaching patients any of these movement patterns. It's crazy to me because You look at what injures a patient, and what injures them is usually them doing improper movements. When they pick up their child or tie their shoe or bend forward in the morning to brush their teeth, they don't understand how to hip hinge, how to keep a neutral spine, stick their pelvis back, and load up the posterior chain, load up the hamstrings and low back musculature, but not load the joints. Patients don't understand how to do that. A lot of human beings just do not understand how to move like that. And teaching someone that is like unlocking this key to like overall health and longevity for a lifetime. So a hip hinge is one of the basic things. One of the main kettlebell exercises we teach a patient is a deadlift. So that's one of the first things we do. Why do we do this? Because of all the reasons that I just mentioned. It's that if you can teach someone how to move properly, you can prevent them from going down that cycle of injuring themselves. And then you can empower them to move on and get stronger. And that's something we talk to our patients about very early on in care, is you say, if you really want to get this issue fixed, you have to get stronger. You have to build strength. Before you build strength, we have to make sure you're moving functionally. To ensure you're moving functionally, you have to have proper segmental integrity. That's the chiropractic part. Postural integrity. Someone's got a big rigid thoracic hyperkyphosis. You're not going to be able to be very active or functional with your movement until you start to address the thoracic hyperkyphosis. That's where we use postural corrective methods. We do postural corrective exercise and traction. We follow chiropractic biophysics protocols for that. And then patient does home care as well. But getting to that movement thing, getting to the strength thing, where they can confidently and competently perform strength exercises, that's where the gold is for these people. They understand it. People understand this whole exercise need, this movement language. It's around us all the time. So the public gets it, and it's a very easy thing for people to buy into. And I'm not saying buying into like in a derogatory way. I'm saying buy into like they make that emotional connection with it to say, yep, I know it. I need to exercise. This is right. And it connects you immediately with them. You immediately develop more trust and rapport because you're speaking this language of exercise, which a lot of other doctors are not doing, So deadlift, weighted hip hinge, which is a deadlift, is the first thing that we're teaching someone once they can clear a bunch of other basic movements to make sure they can safely do a deadlift. Then we start teaching them pieces of a get-up. We split up a Turkish get-up into 2 parts, steps 1 through 3 and steps 4 through 6. So it's a 6-step movement where someone starts on their side with a kettlebell, they roll to press, come up, and then basically from there, where their arm is overhead and their other arm is supporting them, like their body's like a tripod, that's steps 1 through 3. We clean that up. We make sure that's good. We make sure that patients got great shoulder mobility. They don't have any pain. They're improving cervical mobility and motor control, being able to keep the neck nice and relaxed while the shoulder girdle is packed and stabilized. And if there's any issues along the way, if there's super weak core activation along the way, then we time out. Let's work on some more of these protocols to get you stronger. Let's go back into the get up, and the get up now becomes part of the assessment, which is really cool. So that's how we do this with these kettlebell movements, is the kettlebell movements become benchmark assessments, and that's how a patient progresses through what we call the belt system of functional movement, is when they learn these benchmark kettlebell movements. So we go through deadlift, and then we go through get up, steps 1 through 3, and then we go a little bit further, steps 4 through 6 with the get up, until they're standing all the way with a vertical arm, a vertical shoulder. And then we get into a clean. We go into shoulder press. We make sure they have good shoulder mobility and scapular stability. And you'd be surprised. We have patients who come in who have shoulder pain. They can't raise their arm out to the side. And you start teaching them a proper pattern of how to do a shoulder press overhead. You start giving them cues of how to actually pack the scapula and activate scapular stability. And they can go through these motions pain-free. And they can start actually building repetitions and building some strength in there. And they overcome a shoulder issue that maybe they've done months of physical therapy, and they've had injections, and they've done all this other stuff, but you take this magical thing called a kettlebell and teach them this nice pure movement that follows biomechanics so nicely, avoids impingement of the shoulder because of how it's gliding through this what's called like a J-like movement. So it's not L and press, but you're starting from the front in a racked position and moving in this whole arc of motion that's natural to that person's unique shoulder anatomy. These are things that we take a patient through. We eventually get them into doing a swing. We actually teach a swing later on, just because I feel like there's more room for error for someone to hurt themselves doing a swing. So we teach a kettlebell swing, posterior chain activation, actually teach them how to drive through the hips. And then from there, we get into things like kettlebell snatches. So our more advanced patients go through kettlebell snatches. And this is where we ascend them up through this belt system. It makes it fun. It makes it fun for us as the doctors. Our exercise staff has a great time. Our patients absolutely love it. It's like bragging rights for them when they move up this belt system and they say, hey, I've learned a get up. And you'd be really amazed at what patients we have that are doing this. People that years ago in my practice, before I ever did any sort of kettlebell stuff or functional movement, I never pictured these people being able to move like this. But the human body wants to move, it strives to move. You have to be able to reverse engineer some of these dysfunctions that people have developed over the years. And when you start going through them in a methodical way and knocking them down, you can unlock this potential that people have that for a long time I doubted that a lot of people even had this. I know they doubted it themselves, but now it's really taken the limitations off of my mindset of when I look at a patient, and I'm so much more confident at how much better I can get someone, because I know that if we can get them moving and start developing some strength and do it safely, that is the answer. With all the different rehab training and all the different, gizmos and gadgets and stuff out there, the answer really lies in exercise. And I feel like us as chiropractors are the most equipped professional to be able to help someone with this, because we are addressing the most crucial part of the machine in getting someone moving safely, which is spine biomechanics. So we start with the spine biomechanics, we're looking at extremity mechanics, we're looking at postural issues, understanding coupling patterns of the posture, we're looking at x-ray, and then we're doing a detailed movement assessment, and we put it all together beautifully. Other professions have pieces of this. Chiropractic can put it all together. So that's where I wanted to share that with you, as far as why kettlebell work is so crucial and why us as chiropractors need to be measuring and addressing movement patterns. And in my biased opinion, I feel like using kettlebells as the whole tool of choice. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Love to open up a conversation, a discussion with this. If this is intriguing to you, if you're like, wow, this is cool, I never thought about putting kettlebells into my practice or having an exercise department. If that's the case, watch our demo. After you watch the demo, you can schedule a call with one of our support. If you got a question for me directly, shoot me a message on Facebook here. You can do that through our support as well. You can check out our website, movenowyou.com. But the demo is demo.movenowyou.com. And we're looking for other chiropractors who are looking for this. It's been awesome being able to work with so many chiropractors and help them in their practices, not just around the country, but throughout the world. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share today. Hope this is helpful for you. Talk soon. Over and out.